Pinkie stared at me blankly for a few seconds, then brightened. Well, you're the smarty scientist. Hey! That means I'm the party scientist! Well, actually, if you've tried different things in your parties to see how they work, then you are a party scientist. I took a second to marvel at how incredibly dorky I sounded, and how quickly the cotton candy mare could sidetrack my brain. Did I usually babble this much with her around? Twilight, you just kind of babble to yourself anyway. So, here's my idea for a test. I have here one 20-sided die. Let's play Dungeons & Dragons. That's not actually in there. I opened up the leather pouch that I had retrieved earlier and pulled out a single small polyhedron. Pinkie's eyes sparkled in recognition. Hey, that's my lucky red one! Pinkie, your bard got 6 natural ones in a row with this die. I'd hardly call... Wait, they actually do play Dungeons & Dragons. What a plot twist! Okay, in fact, I almost didn't want to use it in this test because of that, but Spike ate the rest of them. Just had to bring that up again, didn't you, Twy? Spike muttered, crossing his arms. You know, some things are not meant to be kept right next to my snack drawer. That was the best, craziest, funnest session we ever had, though. I can't argue with that, except that funnest isn't really a word. Halt! You can't say things like that in a fanfic, where your summary of the fanfic starts a sentence with a conjunction. That's all. Okay. Ahem. I set the die down again. Definitely not letting Rainbow Dash play chaotic neutral next campaign, I said to myself, then realized that Pinkie had sidetracked me again. Anyway, I'm going to roll this die, then send back the number I rolled. A is 1, B is 2, etc. So hopefully before I roll it, your sense will go off and predict the roll. Twilight, are you just doing this so you can cheat at casinos? Considering that I would need to injure myself every time I played? No, this is just for science. So you should receive that... I tried to think of a better word than signal, worked my way through omen and portent, and finally settled on message from the future sometime soon. Suddenly, Pinkie's left rear hoof began shuffling side to side, kicking up small clouds of dust from the unswept lab floor. Twy, here it comes! 16, all right. I tossed the die onto the bench. It bounced off a book and a flask before settling with the number 7 on top. Pinkie, I don't think it worked. There's more coming! Pinkie's tail quivered and began to spin clockwise. This was a real message, then. I took a split second to wonder why Future Meat chose to break protocol, then tossed a quill to Spike. Quick, take it down! She quivered, shuddered, and shook for almost 2 minutes, as Spike scribbled furiously. In the meantime, I grabbed my own parchment and began translating the gestures into letters, lagging behind by a few characters. By the time she was done, Spike had a scroll full of hasty shorthand that started with LR hoof SS and ended with rear legs cross/uncross. Pinkie looked exhausted after it was done, panting like she had just finished the running of the leaves, where she was the announcer. Her mane was damped down with sweat, giving her a slightly more subdued appearance than usual. She huffed. What's it say, Twy? I finished transcribing the last few characters and stared at my sheet in shock. Pinkie, will you go out with me? ... Really, that's how we're doing this? That's how we're doing this. Water break. Oh, this did not disappoint. Ahem. I said intelligently. My brain instantly vapor-locked, taking my horn control with it. The quill fell noiselessly to the ground. Should I be here for this? Spike asked quietly, moving towards the door. You asked me out by time travel? Twilight, that's so romantic! Composure. Yes. Her face was close to mine, close enough to give... Speaking of palpitations, close enough to give me palpitations. The ground swayed unsteadily beneath my hooves. Pinkie, I don't know. Spike left the room. Neither of us paid him any heed. Well, if you don't know where to go on a first date, I'll pick. Montoni's at 7 o'clock? I couldn't believe how loud my heartbeat sounded. I wasn't intending to... She beamed, and my whole world collapsed into that smile. Maybe I'm just easily amused, but... Okay. That's okay, Twilight. You'll do great. Oh, I need to go get ready. With that, she grabbed her copy of the transcription sheet and bounced her way back out of my lab. I stared at the wall for a minute or two, stunned beyond rational thought. Finally, though, my brain engaged again and let me see the enormity of the problem I face. Somehow, some future version of me had used my derived system to send a message. Not just a message, a pickup line. This meant two things, neither of which made me feel comfortable. The first was that at some point in the future I was going to be injured 24 times, and given my usual circumstances, I doubted they'd be spaced out over a matter of weeks. The second was that I had a date with Pinkie Pie. A date with Pinkie Pie. A date with Pinkie Pie. Italics for emphasis. Not only did I not have any idea what Pinkie Pie's idea of a date was, I didn't know what any pony's idea of a date was. I rushed upstairs, leaving the pile of injury junk right where it was. Spike was tidying up. Hey, Twilight, how the heck did you plan all that, and why didn't you tell me? Plan? I slumped to the floor and looked up at Spike helplessly. I didn't plan any of this. I didn't even know how it happened. But Pinkie's never wrong. She hasn't been yet. Oh, Twilight, you card. Spike had been my assistant/brother/friend for most of my life, and it had bailed me out of more fires than I could count. He was my confidant and secret keeper, and when I had first told him about my feelings for Pinkie, his only response was, I know. But now he was at as much of a loss for words as I was, and only shook his head in confusion. I don't know, Twilight. I guess you have a date tonight. Unless you want to ask the princess about it. No, Spike, I sighed. I have to deal with this myself. He made a face. You know, half the trouble you girls get into wouldn't be a problem if you just asked Celestia about it first. Tell my esteemed mentor about first date jitters, and simultaneously about my long-time crush on a certain pink pony? I felt a little sick at the thought. No, and that's final. I like how this is a bit of not in the document again, but I like how Twilight isn't worried about confessing to her mentor of her preferences, let's say, unless this is a perfectly normal thing in the world of Ponyville, which is not touched on in the show because it's for children. Anyway, sure, whatever. What are you gonna do now? The same thing we do every time a problem comes up, Spike. Take over the world! I mean, research. That was not an exact representation of the document. Fortunately, I didn't requisition all the books for the library. If I had, there wouldn't have been anything that would have been a help to me. The ponies of Ponyville who had donated the books, though, had more worldly interests, and there are plenty of dating self-help books. I levitated the whole stack of them to my reading table and dropped them with a thud. Aloysius, on his perch at the other side of the room, blinked up at me blearily and went back to sleep. Yay! Everybody applaud for the Aloysius cameo! Yay! I bet he won't do anything else in the whole story. Pinkie was meeting me at 7. The clock said 2:30 in the afternoon. I had 3 tomes sitting in front of me, full of impenetrable dating advice. In times of uncertainty, they say, our true strengths shine. I got to reading.